Ding dong, the witch is dead.
Yes! I'll read this one if you'd like.
Please do.
Right off the hop. Anita Sarkeesian is shutting down Feminist Frequency after 15 years. Thank fuck! I accidentally clicked the wrong button.
Mine's like, woo!
We were talking about representation very early on in a mainstream way.
No, you weren't, you stupid cow.
Yeah. Anita Sarkeesian is tired. Yes, tired looking. It's been more than 10 years since Sarkeesian first released Tropes versus Women in Video Games on YouTube. It's been 15 years since Sarkeesian's oldest video and the start of what's now known as the Feminist Frequency scam. Over the years, she and her team created several groundbreaking YouTube series, hundreds of podcast episodes.
Really? I thought maybe they only did 800.
Focused support hotline, which failed miserably, and a Peabody Award-winning nonprofit organization, which is probably why she's quitting now.
And don't forget several scams, such as lying about her Kickstarter and not actually fulfilling her promises.
Yeah. It's the sort of work that's both essential and draining. Work that's so meaningful. It's easy to feel an obligation to continue, even in the face of exhaustion. That's why it's time for a break, because I'm extremely burnt out, Sarkeesian told Polygon. I can't vacation that off. I can't offload that anymore. I can't get Zoe Quinn to fuck people for reviews anymore. No, wait, I'm thinking about the wrong one, aren't I?
Somebody died in that.
Sarkeesian's work made feminist critique of the video game industry impossible to ignore. That's because she was shrill and loud. And developers listened. Yes, the video game industry has a long way to go. Not everyone listened.
Yes, we call those the good companies.
Language of feminism to a space that was often ignorant to it. Though Feminist Frequency started on YouTube, it grew into an organization that made a tangible impact on the industry through its work with studios and developers.
And crime and driving people to suicide.
Well, yeah, can't win them all. We got enough. Though some of Feminist Frequency's initiatives, like Programs Manager Jay Lynn's accountability group Respec, will live on in different ways.
Like a zombie corpse shuffling off into the netherworld, feeding on the brains of, and bank accounts of many a game company.
Yeah. Let me see. The accountability group Respec will live on in different ways. The organization as a whole will disband by the end of the year, so it's going to be a good new year. The Games and Online Harassment Hotline, which the team spun up in 2019 as the industry reckoned with systemic sexism and harassment, oh god, not the systemic stuff, will run through the end of September.
There's a joke to be made. They're talking about spun up, and what's slang for hookers? Spinners.
Well, I was thinking you were going to go with spin doctors.
No.
But it leads to another point. Yeah, spun up in 2019. You know what else was spun up? This whole fucking thing. It was invented by pulling it out of Anita's ass because it's all lies.
Yep, spun from whole cloth, I think the expression goes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not the first time Sarkeesian has considered shutting down Feminist Frequency.
If only she'd done it before.
But
so, what, 20 years ago?
Yeah. She found it had reached its supposedly natural conclusion several times before, but there was always something new pulling her and the team back into it. The lure of money.
Yeah.
But this time it's sticking. Really, we swear. We're not saying this just to see if we can drum up some more support before we have to actually retire and go find real jobs. Beyond needing to rest and recover from that burnout, Sarkeesian deeply believes that there's value to ending projects naturally. He would see it that way. There doesn't need to be some catastrophic ending. I don't think we talk about that enough, she said. You built this whole thing, and why would you give it up? But sometimes it's actually better that we can move on to new things, to take risks and do things that challenge us. Feminist Frequency's legacy is twofold. There's the unique video essays and criticism on its YouTube channel.
There's the damage to the gaming industry and the dead people.
Yes. Yeah. And its external training and support programs born out of that initial success. YouTube itself was only a few years old when Sarkeesian started publishing videos on the site in 2009. One of the first things that YouTube's algorithm should have quashed. One of the earliest is a 5-minute musing on Dollhouse's TV renewal compared to the cancellation of Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles. The videos are simple in premise, with Sarkeesian talking right into the camera, disturbingly. Sometimes with accompanying video or images.
Oh my god, a talking headpiece with B-roll? How fucking incredibly genius. Fucking stupid.
Wow, it's like she traveled back to she went back to the 1950s and realized that you could show a screen within a screen.
What?
I know. It's groundbreaking stuff, lads.
She found great success with this format over the years, using it in Tropes versus Women in video games, the breakout series that hit the industry like a lightning bolt. Well, more like a static shock from a pair of socks.
Well, it is roughly equivalent to electrocution, executing someone via the chair.
When you're the one plugging it into the wall with a frayed power cord and handing somebody the other end.
Yeah, I think the only episode of Tropes versus Women I ever watched was enough to make me feel like I needed some electrotherapy.
Fair.
Each episode of Tropes versus Women tackled a different prominent trope. Sarkeesian appeared on screen and explained to the viewer not only what these tropes are, but provided critical feminist analysis. Sarkeesian took on concepts like damsel in distress, which explored the supposedly infamous trope of women being saved. Oh dear God, how will we ever appeal to the male fantasy? Women as reward, which is exactly what it sounds like, except it's really not. And strategic butt coverings, an analysis of the way in-game cameras linger on women's bodies, particularly their butts. I'm sorry, you're talking about an in-game camera controlled by a female linger. Me and my team were pioneering a space. I wish you had been space pioneers. It was at the very beginning of video blogging and internet video.
Airlock.
The very beginning? No.
We were talking about representation very, very early on in a mainstream way. Okay.
Before we go on, I just want to talk about those tropes again. Firstly, notice that Mary Sue is missing. Secondly, let me rename these tropes. Men like protecting women, women like heroes, and men like butts. Well, everyone likes butts.
Especially Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Yes. And if I'm going to have to stare at a butt for the next 47 hours, I'd like it to be a sexy butt, preferably of a woman. Just saying.
Ideally, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bleach. Sorry.
That's the thing that I find humorous is, we just have to make sure the male gaze doesn't stay on the female butt. It's like, so you're telling men when they're sitting there playing for 15, 40, 60 hours that they can't have something that's aesthetically pleasing and that they want to protect? Because everybody wants to protect the main character because you can keep playing the damn game.
It's even dumber than that, really. I mean...
Yeah, basic human nature, really.
Yeah, and that's the point that I'd forgotten that I was going to make. That they sit there banging on about, respect all sexualities, every sexuality is valid, except being a straight man.
Yeah.
Finding women of fertile age attractive is apparently evil now.
It always has been, but we haven't had the way to address it until we had the ability for feminist frequency to tell us that was wrong.
Yeah, but looking at men, that's fine. Looking at children, that's also fine, according to Anita. But no, looking at adult human females, that's the problem.
And it always has been.
Oh, well.
We were talking about representation very early on in a mainstream way. No, a mainstream feminist way. It wasn't a popular thing to do outside of academia, she continues. And
because it was made up in academia by a bunch of idiots with no talent or value. Also, Bayonetta, Lara Croft.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, even earlier there was... Oh God!
Are you thinking
Aran?
Samus? Yeah.
Well, I mean, Samus Aran is technically a thing, but 8 pixels doesn't really count.
No, and it was end of the game reveal as well. So
true.
And now Samus, as seen in Smash Brothers, now we're fucking talking.
True. Monkey in chat. Goddamn male gaze. Okay, let me see here. Across two seasons of Tropes Versus, Sarkeesian's work has racked up millions of views, earning her an appearance on the Colbert Report, and a spot on Time Magazine's list of the 100 most influential people in 2015.
So is that the Colbert Report featuring Stephen Colbert, talentless, retarded leftist hack, and Time Magazine that featured Hitler?
Yes. I mean, Hitler, Colbert Report, same thing.
I was going to say Hitler, Anita Sarkeesian, same thing.
We're all right here. Hitler.
The series' influence persists to this day. Yes, because everyone is still annoyed at her. Sarkeesian's work can be tied to a rise in more inclusive portrayals of women. So in other words, it's her fault we've got ugly protagonists in video games now.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, literally.
People started to recognize these tropes and began to reverse them. Arcane Studios' Harvey Smith spoke with Sarkeesian about the influence of feminist frequency on his work. He specifically called out and said he'd remember forever Sarkeesian's criticism of Dishonored's women. Every woman in Dishonored, the first Dishonored game, is either a servant, a prostitute, a witch, a queen, or a little girl. Smith told Sarkeesian in a video on Engadget.
So basically, all the normal roles of women.
Yes. One, I don't think that's actually true, and two, so literally everywhere. Then,
yeah.
Like, when the fuck do they think Dishonored is set? Dishonored is not set in the 1900s.
But strong, empowered woman.
Mm-hmm. Like, Dishonored set feels like it's set in the early Renaissance with late Renaissance guns. But, like, what exactly did they think that women in that time period did?
I mean, clearly they were all very advanced in STEM and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And Maureen sums up everybody's attitude over in chat. She says, "Who cares? If it is entertaining, it serves the purpose. It is a game." Yeah, this
is that, and that's why modern games suck, because they're not entertaining.
What's that? I'm getting a lot of chop out, unfortunately.
Yes, we noticed.
Yeah. Okay, you want me to start reading again, or?
Yeah, carry on.
Yes, please.
Okay. Every woman Dishonored. Would the game be worse if we took an action on this, or would it be better? The game would be richer and more interesting. No, it would be worse, because you're taking away from characterization of something that doesn't need to be represented, because your fucking target audience is not feminist women. I mean, look at the massive number of feminist female game players now since Sarkeesian did this. All 12 of them.
Yeah, mobile gaming is not real gaming. The fact that as many women are playing Farm Crash or whatever the fuck garbage they play.
Power Wash Simulator.
Right, come here, you.
Later or something.
That is fine. I'll just let Disco beat you up. Kick you right in the fucking ankles.
Well, she is a Mac
die
now,
quietly.
Sorry.
Hey, I just realized this is going to be a game of survival today. Who in chat think is going to survive?
Who's going to die first?
The Australian outlive the Newfoundlander. Oh my. Anyway,
at least I'll die naturally.
Armored harvesting role. Oh, sorry.
Is that why the second game sucked?
I would be willing to bet on that. Yeah. Let's see. Similarly, Naughty Dog director Neil Druckmann has spoken about how Sarkeesian's
Druckmann.
Neutered Dog is more like it.
The guy who ruined the Last of Us sequel and TV show. Right. Yes, it's that fucking fat cock.
I followed wasn't my kind of game, but I followed some of the drama on that, and all I could think of was, if you hate your audience that much and publicly admit it, how are the higher ups not just like, no, you're out of here, fuck off?
BlackRock and ESG is the answer.
Always is.
Yeah, but referred to in academia, where it influences students. And I'm going to skip a little touch here. Mark Santos, an associate professor of English at the University of Northern Colorado, used feminist frequency in an undergraduate English class.
That's focused on manipulating facts and screwing people over.
Yes. In a recent project, students used videos like lingerie is not body armor. That's not true. It could have a force field.
Yes.
Oh, it analyzes the male gaze in video games. I have some bad news for Anita.
Video games still exist, and she doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, straight women like butts too.
And speaking of Disco, she's in chat. Hello, Disco. She says, Ellie was a decent female character in the first one before she went from a daddy-daughter figure to a raging lesbo. Okay.
Is there any other kind of lesbo these days? I mean, look at the domestic abuse ratios.
Was there ever any other kind of lesbo?
We'll wait to see if chat has answers.
Yes.
Welcome to Rumble. We can say things.
Exactly.
And apparently they're still not taking bets on whether I'm going to survive or Bez is. In any case, skipping just a little bit more because we really don't want to talk about the university situation. Tropes versus women in video games continued until the end of 2017, and through years of abuse and harassment that one could simply call hell. You could, You could.
But you'd be lying.
No. Actually, no, she's correct.
I mean,
she's
to speak to the world.
She was providing. She was providing lots of abuse.
Yeah, she's describing exactly what she did and caused to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God. Oh, of course they have to bring up the fabricated Gamergate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course.
Now considered
course
a watershed moment in the rise of far-right extremism. No, you tards.
This is exactly when they basically took moderate centrist type guys like Carl and suddenly turned him into a right-wing figure.
Mm-hmm. And Carl is not remotely right-wing.
No.
Callan Deaton comes in and says Anita and Galadriel would get along fine.
Anita and Guy.
Oh no, it'd be a massive bitch fight though. Just slaps going back and forth.
Sarkeesian described how exhausting it was not only to experience this level of harassment and abuse while attempting to
compress the audio
in interviews and on panels. I was so over talking about abuse. The dog and pony show of trotting out my abuse.
There in your position. So you mean sitting there in your position of power and attacking people in the audience and calling them garbage humans. Is that right? Yeah. The one, Anita. This guy says harassment and abuse. You mean criticism for false claims?
Yeah, pretty much.
Hold on. Can I find the name?
While you're hunting for that, I'll read a little bit more. At that point, I started to be like, I'm not talking about my experience anymore. It's online. Yes, Sargon fucking roasted you over it. You can go and check it out. I'm not re-traumatizing myself for the sake of this audience anymore. And that's when I started realizing that I'm just really fucking over this.
Yeah, over her capo dope.
Yes, Earl. My internet is in fact more of a letdown than RoboCop 3.
Yeah, she's overlived her welcome on the internet.
Oh, fuck off, you dumb slag. Look at this. The bitch is still making $2,500 a month after making fuck all content.
Would you like to be an intrepid sidekick? Fearless feminist or vanquisher of patriarchy?
No.
Fuck.
I'm not
like to give her an intrepid sidekick in the head.
Yeah. I'm no sidekick. I'm the main character of this story. Fuck you, bitch. Oh, dear.
I was so over talking about abuse. The dog and pony show of trotting out my abuse. It's like she was tired of playing the victim because she had nothing new.
Well, and when you acquire the level of influence she did, you obviously have to stop calling yourself a victim.
She's accidentally self-reported there, trotting out my abuse. Yes, we've noticed you abusing people, you dumb slag. Sorry, you may continue when ready on it.
Well, since he's redoing something with his internet.
No, I'm okay. I was just coughing another big chunk of my lung up. Feminist frequency ultimately evolved that game developers and journalists alike consider the first big #MeToo moment in video games. Sure they do.
What? When one of Anita's friends started raping people.
Game developers have been speaking about the abuses they'd faced for years, but often in private and through whisper networks. Months after Hollywood's #MeToo reckoning and Kotaku's exhaustive report of sexism at League of Legends developer Riot Games got a chance to make money, or at least acquire clout, people from across the industry came forward to speak about the industry's problems with sexism and harassment. Accountability was finally starting to happen. In 2021, things came to a head once again when the California Civil Rights Department sued Activision Blizzard for its alleged culture of harassment and gender discrimination.
Yeah, but it's fucking California. What the fuck would... If California calls it a culture of harassment, that sounds like the bitch we covered the other week that was whining about the guys having Nerf battles in the office.
Oh, I couldn't get a good aim with my Nerf gun, so they're sexist. Fuck you, bitch.
They keep ducking my Nerf darts. That's the problem.
Yeah.
That just sucked me back in, Sarkeesian said. In other words, I saw a chance to grift some more. People were reaching out to me for help, and I figured I'd cash in. I understand why people were coming to me. It was this interesting moment where I recognized that my career up until work, which is kind of sad. Yes, your work is kind of sad, Anita. I'm glad you acknowledged that. But here we are. With the help of several collaborators, the Feminist Frequency team started the Games and Online Harassment Hotline, which opened up to the public in August 2020. Anyone involved in the video game industry, players, streamers, developers, could use the confidential text message service. Jay Lin, hotline director and programs manager at Feminist Frequency, spearheaded the project. Staffers at a call center that specializes in mental health and suicide prevention work were trained in video game-specific issues, according to God. We all feel the same way about call center work. Can you imagine how much worse it would have to be if you had to do training to deal with people who are having video game-specific issues? Oh my! You'd go home needing to call the hotline at the end of the day.
I need help. The boys were having a nerve battle, and I'm retarded.
Oh my god!
It's hard to quantify the hotline's success.
I can see why. No success.
Quantify.
Completely fucking useless.
Yeah. All of the conversations are anonymous, and it's hard to judge even the impact of the hotline on a single person, Lynn said. It's a single conversation before a person moves on, and they may never text again. And if they did, agents won't ever know. It's all anonymous. But we have heard that it felt surprising and refreshing to find a space that's specifically for games. Yeah, I can understand that because gaming is still somewhat of a niche pastime. But that particular space, it's a game space where they could be met with so much compassion and empathy. Space could look like, God, this is making
pretending
me
as
miss
if Hollywood
Xbox
hasn't
Live.
existed for 100 fucking years.
The support community space extended to the hotline workplace itself, with the team coming together in high-stress, high-traffic situations to carry the emotional load of it all. Oh my fuck, they were sitting around a computer singing Kumbaya, I guarantee it. We're really grateful we could be, for some people, the only place around sexual violence, and gag orders are not uncommon in this industry. A lot of people felt like they couldn't talk about it in other places.
Sounds a lot to me like a text-based struggle session.
Yeah. Also, why are they lamenting the fact that there's stigma around sexual violence? That's a weird way to put that, Mr. Lynn, or Miss Lynn, whatever your friggin' title is supposed to
Respect
be.
their pronouns.
Oh, if it's even confused as to whether Jay is a male or female name.
Assume neither.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see.
So
look at this
neuter
point.
Lynn, okay.
Neuter
but
Lynn.
Gag orders. The whole thing with gag orders. I mean, that's a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA.
Well, no, it's not. A gag order is enforced by a court. That's why it's an order.
Yeah.
Ooh, I was thinking you were misunderstanding NDAs.
No. They're legally required not to speak about a certain topic.
An NDA is a non-disclosure agreement. So it is a contract that the company and the employees sign to not talk about a thing. And then if you violate that, you can be sued. A gag order is when a court, as part of a proceeding, either of their own initiative or more likely at the request of, say, a victim, may prohibit one or both parties from talking about the case or part of the case or one specific thing. For example, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Say, say for example, something came up in discovery that was then suppressed. The court might issue a gag order about it, or they might say issue a temporary gag order on talking to the media about the case, etc., etc.
Okay, then. Let's see. A lot of people felt they couldn't talk about it in other places. That felt so powerful that we would be here for that and be supportive to each other. That secondary trauma and emotional ripples together so that it wasn't too heavy and didn't break any of us individually. Okay, if you are such a weak person that someone else's trauma can break you, you have a problem that may require therapy or
you're definitely in the wrong fucking
Canadian
career.
passport.
Yeah, or any career for that matter.
Yeah. Lynn and Sarkeesian said they were surprised to find that people who had done texting the hotline. We were prepared for people who were being harassed, but we were not prepared at all for people who were doing the harassment. What? Yeah, that's right where I am, Bleach. The two had to make quick decisions around these sorts of messages. What do we do? The hotline was created as a space for victims, but they quickly realized that transformative justice had a role there too. Oh, dear God. More lefty crap.
Transformative justice, also known as completely fucking useless justice. The victims don't get anything, and it doesn't stop actual perpetrators.
The only thing that I think of when I think transformative justice is return to public shaming.
Yes, that would be transformative for once.
Bring out the fucking stocks. Maybe that's the trick. We find cheaters and drag them out and fucking tomato them in public.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Oh God! You talk about the male gaze when somebody's bent over in those stocks. Anyway, moving along. Let's see. It fell in line with the values we had around understanding harassment and violence as an ecosystem. Oh God, it's back to climate change again. And this environmental issue. Sorry.
It's like, oh, it's an ecosystem. It's like, okay, I could make up words too for meanings that they don't actually have. Congratulations, Anita.
Well,
These people are just so damn insufferable. That it's just.
This sounds a lot like the Australian government's domestic violence hotlines. If you call the one for women, they give you support whether you need it or not. If you call for the one for men, they assume you're an abuser and send the police around.
I wish that was a joke.
I really wish it wasn't so terribly, unfortunately, laughable. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's straight up true.
Let's see. We can't force people to change, but for whatever reason, people are showing a bit of vulnerability to admit their mistakes to us. We change. And your hands out for change. That's where Respec, a program and support space for people who have caused harm, comes in. From that work on the hotline, Lynn created a separate small group initiative. Though they don't know what Respec will look like after Feminist Frequency closes, you'd think you'd have the basis for the whole organization set up long before this. They remain committed to keeping it running. It's part of the organization that's clearly influenced the video game industry, even on an individual scale. This sounds someone who's just connecting to a struggle session that they want to have. I really feel like I've witnessed transformation and seen actual cycles of violence and harassment and harm start to get broken in the industry, Lynn said. One of Respec's core tenets is healing through community, removing that sense of isolation.
Yeah, and how much of that is firing Anita's side toy? That weird little pervert.
Which one?
Yes.
You lost me for a second there. It's so confusing to know which one you're talking about. Oh, that guy. Okay.
The guy who actually ran Feminist Frequency.
God, what was his name? Justin something, wasn't it?
Face.
Justin Trudeau?
Too.
What?
No, we'll come to him later.
Come Stein Mc.
To that sense. Sarkeesian keeps coming back to that sense of isolation in her own healing as she moves on from Feminist Frequency. For a really long time, I was alone. That makes it worse. It's really easy to sit in fear constantly. I had some support, but I was afraid of everyone. Where were you getting the support? From your fucking dog?
What were you afraid of?
She said she was forced to create a shell to get through it. I don't want people to have to toughen up in order to exist online, but I could have never gone through any of this. You may not understand this, but in order to function in any world that involves other people, you need to be a bit tough. It's gonna be important.
But
she's a woman. She can't be expected to take responsibility for her own emotions.
Or even worse, she can't impose her will on you because once a month she has to fuck off and bleed like a stuck animal.
Look, anything that can bleed for 5 days and not die can't be trusted.
Exactly.
Sarkeesian recognizes that the amount of online harassment she gets currently is abnormal for the everyday person. Yes, but that's because you're putting yourself in public, you dumb you as our friend Spoon says, you dozy bint. But that things have slowed down considerably. It's not bomb threat docs a fucking public figure. It gave me space to breathe a little more. I remember a moment when I did get harassed. I don't know what it was, but it was either a Twitter message or an email. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, that hurts. And then I was like, wait a minute, that hurts. That's cool. Being able to feel again. That's a form of healing. And by stepping away for a bit. Yeah. And by stepping away for a bit, she hopes to keep giving herself more and more space to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It really sounds like her Patreon isn't big enough to support her lifestyle anymore.
Clearly. Well, it never was, especially with her ego.
If you enjoyed this segment from the Sons of Chardonnay podcast, please consider joining us live exclusively on rumble.com/c/Sons of Chardonnay. A special thanks to our Subscribe Star supporters who you can currently see scrolling past on your screen.